Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we are talking about the one and only ICP. Now, you know me, I am super high on this coin. In fact, I've made multiple videos on this. I've been saying where I was looking to buy potentially, right? One time, let me give you guys a great buy zone. We've been talking about it in the Discord. If anyone's in the Discord, we've been showing that we've been constantly buying ICP at extremely low prices, right? We have been buying around this zone consistently between $4.40 to upwards of $5 is mainly our main big position. So we are really locked in this cycle, right? I believe we did catch the bottom lows, and I expect ICP to have a nuclear pump to the upside super soon. Okay, and we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we have been creating higher lows on the weekly, right? When we draw it out, you can see pretty much a double bottom over here, and guess what, a higher low over here, giving us an indication that ICP will continue to pump higher and higher. Right now, we could also see that we did break structure, and we are currently up above this high, right? We are higher than this high. So, right, as long as we just close, anywhere above $5.75 this week will give us bullish indication, even more so. But I do believe that the bottoms have been in. Bitcoin has been pumping, as we've been saying on this channel, that we do expect Bitcoin to go absolutely nuclear this week, right? We've had similar candles with Bitcoin in the past, where they do some kind of manipulation, and then overall, not too long after, it pumps, manipulation, pumps, manipulation, pumps, right? So we've seen it. And we expect this with Bitcoin. We expect Bitcoin to be going to 120K. Now, why is this relevant for ICP? Well, ladies and gentlemen, is very simple. What Bitcoin does, other coins do pretty much too, for the most part, right? I know altcoins are a little bit underwhelming as of right now, but for me, they're underwhelming because they've been mainly accumulating, because they will actually go so nuclear that no one is going to be expecting these types of pumps. Look, this is the first thing I see about ICP when it comes to structure, right? We are in this type of structure, and we are in this trend line. And I might be thinking, well, why are you showing me this? Well, because, ladies and gentlemen, the last time we had something similar, right? We can see, boom, over here. If we go take the trend line over here, boom, right? Once we start to break past the trend line, we really bursted to the upside. We went from $3.90 all the way to $20.40. Now, this was way before. This was with Bitcoin being lower, less money in the markets, less power to pump these coins. Now, for me, what do you notice, right? We notice something very similar happening, but just on a bigger scale and longer, because there is going to be obviously a bigger pump. So we can see we had one top, two top, right? We had a support. We dunked through the support, we faked out, and then we went lower. And then guess what? We had one top, two top, just exactly how we had it. We also did have a support, right? Support. Guess what? We slammed below the support, and then we went a little lower. And guess what? We are literally showing similar types of reversal signs, right? Where I say we are is somewhere right over here compared to here. Now, like I said, obviously it's going to take longer here because they are preparing for very big pumps. It requires longer accumulation times, right? Which means probably next altcoin season, it might take even longer, but that's another, that's for another video. That's for another day. But we can see, right? We are pretty much the equivalent of being over here back in September and October. So I expect some nice pumps over the next few weeks, right? I expect some nice pumps over the next few weeks. The first zone, we should kind of go easily up until $7. The reason why I say might slow down around $7 is because there's a little bit of support and resistance. But it would not surprise me if we just kind of burst past it, retest, and once we retest, there's no real support and resistance up until $11, right? That is when we can see there's some type of support and resistance, and there's a lot of imbalance. Imbalance is practically when there's no real type of support resistance holding anything back, which means price can mirror this very, very nicely, right? So we can go from $7 up until, let's say, $11 fairly quickly, okay? And guess what? That is going to align perfectly with our trend line, right? When we take our trend line, right, we're going to go past this zone. We're probably going to accumulate around this, resistance, turning it into support. And once we do, we're also going to be above the trend line. And guess what? We're going to start really, really, really bursting. So on a short term, right, in terms of just pure liquidity, right, we're looking to take out this $20, $21 practically, and obviously this zone over here of $15.65. Now, like I said, for me, this is just very, very small zones. I believe that we're going to go nuclear. How nuclear are we going to go? Well, I believe ICP at the minimum should be hitting roughly $75 this cycle, right? $75, which is why I've been accumulating super heavily between $4 to $5. Because for me, if I can get that 15x, right, 15 range into 20x zone on a very high probability, I am going to do that. When we go and look at something like ICP, if we bring it up very quickly, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, we are ranked we're ranked 33. We are currently at 3.13 billion market cap, almost at $6, 185 million volume in the last 24 hours. So even just in terms of market cap, if we were to go and get a 10x, would be looking at roughly $58.60 with a market cap of $31 billion, which for me, like I said, it's more than doable because I do find ICP in that 35 to 45 billion market cap range. And I do think it is going to hit that. So us hitting $70, $75, right, peaking around that 35 to 45 billion market cap, maybe even a little bit higher, is more than realistic because I see an institutional bank candle right over here. So I am looking for these types of zones. Now, of course, if the data is different in the moment, if there's bigger and harder pumps, if things are aligning with, us going further, then I will readjust my plan. And obviously I will be telling people in my Discord and readjusting everything, right? Because we are looking to be cashing out near the tops. Here's the thing. How high can ICP go if there's all-time euphoria, right? If ICP gets the spotlight, well, I think ICP can be one of those coins that could peak at roughly 80 billion market cap, right? That means peak can go up to 80 billion and then drop back down to 60 billion within the same hour. So if that were the case, that would be a 20x from here would be roughly $120 at 60 billion, right? $120 at 60 billion. So we could definitely be seeing $150, $180 ICP range if there's all-time euphoria, if the pumps are as big as some people say. Once again, this is something that we have to readjust to, right? This is not something that is guaranteed, but for me, this $70 to $75 zone is very, very high probability, and it is my first take profit, unless, of course, something changes. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye. Portfolio reviews, economic and global updates and news, frequent up-to-date technical analysis, and a very supportive community. Sell and buy calls and trading education is provided. If that sounds good to you, now is the time to act. Once the markets start moving, there is no I should've, coulda, woulda. Now is the time. If you want to take things to another level, we have the blueprint that covers everything from A to Z in crypto that you need. No fluff, no bullshit, just the most important news, fundamentals, and technicals to have you succeed in these markets.